Case File, Tertius 19 Alpha. Subject, Orks Commando Designation, Sneaky Git. Investigating Arbitrator Cassius Vonnet. Classification, Xenos Threat Level Extremis. The following account has been compiled from survivor testimonies, security footage, and forensic evidence gathered during my investigation into the Ork who self-identifies as Sneaky Git. What you are about to hear defies all tactical doctrine regarding Ork behavior patterns. The subject displayed unprecedented stealth capabilities while maintaining the characteristic Ork propensity for extreme violence. I must stress to any who hear this recording, this is not a tale of heroism or redemption. Sneaky Git is responsible for the deaths of over 300 Imperial citizens and the complete breakdown of security on Hive World Tertius. The fact that some of its actions inadvertently benefited Imperial interests does not diminish the threat it represents. My investigation began 3 months after the initial incident, when reports of an invisible Ork reached the Arbitrator Conclave on Sector Command. I dismissed these reports as the ravings of shell-shocked guardsmen until I reviewed the classified footage myself. What I witnessed challenged everything I thought I knew about Xenos' infiltration tactics. The creature first appeared on the outskirts of Hive City Tertius at Imperial Guard Checkpoint Theta 9. According to Sergeant Krell's testimony, recorded before his subsequent breakdown and confinement to the asylum, the first sign of trouble was what he described as purple shadows moving wrong. It was just after dawn, Krell had said, his eyes darting constantly to the corners of the interrogation room. The morning mist was thick, and we had reports of smugglers using the old industrial roads. That's when Morrison spotted it. Morrison, unfortunately, was among the first casualties. His final Vox transmission, recovered from the wreckage, provides our earliest audio evidence of the Ork's presence. Contact, contact. There's something. Emperor's teeth, it's walking backwards. It's purple and it's walking backwards toward the checkpoint. The security footage from that morning shows what appears to be a large, purple-painted figure moving in reverse toward the checkpoint with exaggerated stealth movements. Its gait suggests it believed itself to be invisible, crouching low and moving from shadow to shadow despite being clearly visible to the recording equipment. What makes this footage particularly disturbing is the visible joy in its stealth approach, visible in its body language despite the crude camouflage. Guardsman Tonkler, one of only 3 survivors from the 47-man checkpoint garrison, described the initial assault. It came through the razor wire like it wasn't there, just walked through it, and it was humming. Emperor preserve us, it was humming some kind of tune while it tore through the checkpoint. The forensic evidence from Checkpoint Theta 9 painted a picture of methodical but chaotic violence. He had systematically eliminated every human present. But the manner of their deaths suggested a being that took genuine pleasure in combat rather than viewing it as mere necessity. Blast patterns indicated the use of crude but effective explosives. Most disturbing was the discovery of Commissar Vance's body. The officer had been positioned at his desk, caught in the act of writing a report. The Xenos had somehow approached without triggering any of the motion sensors or automated defenses, suggesting stealth capabilities that should have been impossible for an Ork of its size. From Checkpoint Theta 9, the creature's trail led directly into the heart of Tertius, to the Schola Progenium facility designated St. Macharius Academy. This is where the true horror of the Sneaky Git incident began to unfold. The academy housed approximately 200 child soldiers in training, ranging in age from 8 to 16. These children represented the future of the Imperial Guard on Tertius, carefully selected for their potential and trained in the harsh disciplines necessary for service to the Emperor. Its infiltration of this facility represents one of the most disturbing aspects of the entire incident. According to the Academy's security logs, the first sign of intrusion came at 0300 hours, when several motion sensors detected movement in the outer courtyards. However, when security teams investigated, they found nothing. The large brute had somehow masked its presence well enough to avoid direct detection while still triggering the most sensitive equipment. Instructor Sergeant Holt, a veteran of the Sabbat World's crusade, provided the most detailed account of the, quote, teaching methods, unquote. His testimony, recorded while he was still sedated for his injuries, reveals the true extent of the creature's tactical cunning. It started with the night exercises, Holt had whispered, his voice barely audible above the medical equipment. The children were conducting training in the academy grounds when the screaming started, but it wasn't the children's screaming. It was coming from the instructor quarters. It had been observing the training exercises for some time before intervening. Its first action was to eliminate the instructors who were monitoring the children from concealed positions, using what forensic analysis later determined to be a combination of blade work and strangulation, suggesting a detailed knowledge of Imperial training protocols, and had identified the command structure within minutes of observation. What happened next defies all understanding of Ork psychology. Rather than slaughtering the children, it began what can only be described as an impromptu combat lesson. Cadet Praxis, now serving with the 19th PDF, provided a detailed account of the instruction. It was huge, Praxis had told me during our interview, bigger than any human, covered in crude armor and weapons. But it moved like a ghost. It would appear behind us, demonstrate a combat technique, then vanish again. We could hear it breathing, sometimes humming, but we couldn't see where it was. The teaching methods were, by all accounts, brutally effective. It forced the children to participate in combat scenarios that would have been considered extreme even by Schola Progenium standards. However, analysis of the Academy's training records shows that the children's combat scores improved dramatically during the single night of the Orks' presence. The true purpose of the intervention became clear when dawn broke and the Academy came under attack by cultists of the ruinous powers. Intelligence gathered after the incident revealed that a chaos cult had been planning to infiltrate the Academy for months, intending to corrupt or eliminate the future officers being trained there. The creature's presence and its lessons were the only thing that saved the children from this fate. Cadet Supervisor Maxim, who survived the cultist attack, described the final confrontation. The children fought like veterans. They moved as one unit, anticipating each other's actions, covering weak points instinctively. And through it all, we could hear this laughter. Deep, alien laughter coming from the shadows. The brute was watching, and it was enjoying the battle. 23 cultists died in the Academy courtyard that morning. 8 Academy instructors were found dead in their quarters, eliminated by the Ork before the main assault. Of the 156 children present during the incident, all survived, though many required extensive psychological counseling afterward. Its departure from the Academy was as mysterious as its arrival. Security footage shows the children standing in formation in the main courtyard at attention, while a shadow moved around the perimeter of the recorded area. Then, nothing. Sneaky Git had vanished, leaving only the aftermath of its intervention. The trail went cold for several days until reports began filtering in from the noble quarter of Upper Tertius. The xenos had somehow infiltrated the most secure section of the hive, bypassing security measures that had been considered impregnable. The method of this infiltration remains one of the most baffling aspects of the entire case. Lady Valorian's monthly soiree was attended by the most influential nobles of Tertius society. The guest list included planetary governors, military commanders, and representatives of several prominent rogue trader dynasties. The security arrangements for such an event typically involved multiple layers of protection, including psychic screening, automated weapon systems, and elite guards. The infiltration method used was reconstructed from security footage and witness testimony. It defies rational explanation. Surveillance records show the Ork approaching the main entrance of the Valorian estate, but instead of attempting to bypass security, it simply stopped moving. For approximately 47 minutes, he then remained motionless in the estate's entrance hall. Lord Valorian's personal bodyguard, Captain Tallers, provided the most detailed account of this infiltration. The security system registered the presence of an unauthorized servoskull in the main hall. Nothing unusual about that. Servoskulls malfunction, wander off course, sometimes get confused by electromagnetic interference. Standard protocol is to ignore them unless they pose an immediate threat. It had positioned itself among the estate's servoskulls and remained perfectly still, convinced that this disguise would be effective. The truly disturbing aspect of this infiltration is that it worked. Despite being clearly visible on security footage, despite its obvious differences from actual servoskulls, the creature was ignored by both guards and automated systems. It was making beeping noises, Captain Tallers continued, his voice hollow with disbelief. We could hear it beeping, like a servoskull with a damaged Vox unit. It just never occurred to anyone that it might be something else. The creature remained in this position throughout the evening's festivities, observing the interactions between the noble guests. Audio analysis of the security recordings suggests it was particularly interested in conversations regarding trade agreements and shipping schedules. The implications of an Ork intelligence-gathering operation on this scale are deeply troubling. Git's presence was only discovered when Lady Valorian herself approached what she believed to be a malfunctioning servoskull. Her scream, captured on audio recording, marked the beginning of the bloodbath that followed. Its response to being discovered reveals much about its psychological profile. Rather than immediately resorting to violence, the creature appeared to panic. Security footage shows it looking around frantically, searching for a new hiding place. It settled on crouching behind a decorative pillar that was perhaps 1/10 its actual size. He remained in this position for several more minutes, convinced it was now invisible again. The violence, when it began, was swift. The creature eliminated the security detail first, using tactics that showed detailed knowledge of Imperial Guard protocols. It then systematically worked through the guest list, though analysis of the casualties told us it was selective in its targeting. Several nobles known for their humanitarian efforts were found unconscious, but alive, while those with records of particular cruelty were among the dead. Its actions during the massacre allowed it to overhear crucial intelligence about a slave trading operation being coordinated between corrupt Imperial officials and xenos raiders. This information would prove crucial to understanding the creature's subsequent actions. Lord Malthorn's shipping consortium had been secretly facilitating the transport of human slaves to Dark Eldar raiders operating in the sector's outer rim. The scale of this operation was staggering, involving hundreds of thousands of Imperial citizens who had been reported as casualties of various military actions or industrial accidents. The creature's infiltration of the noble gathering had exposed one of the largest corruption scandals in Tertius's history. The Orks' departure from the Valorian estate was as chaotic as its infiltration had been methodical. Security footage shows it simply walking out the main entrance, entirely convinced that no one could see it as long as it was crouching. The surviving guards made no attempt to stop it, being either dead, unconscious, or catatonic with terror. The next phase of the investigation led me to the orbital trading station Blessed Prophet, where the slave trading operation had its primary hub. The method of reaching the orbital station represents perhaps the most audacious aspect of its entire campaign. According to the testimony of cargo handler Gax Mutton, the creature had hidden itself among a shipment of industrial equipment bound for the station. The manifest listed the cargo as mining equipment and associated components, but the creature had somehow displaced several tons of actual equipment with its own bulk. The crate was marked as containing a rock crusher, Mutton explained during his interrogation. Standard industrial gear, nothing unusual. But when we opened it for inspection, there was this thing curled up inside. It was too big for the crate, but it was in there anyway, and it was grinning like some kind of crazy beast. The creature's infiltration of the station itself reveals a level of tactical planning that should not be possible for an Ork operating without clan support. It had clearly studied the station's layout and security protocols in advance, moving through maintenance tunnels and service corridors, suggesting it performed detailed reconnaissance. The Blessed Prophet housed approximately 3,000 individuals at any given time, including crew, passengers, and cargo handlers. The station also served as a temporary holding facility for human cargo awaiting transport to Dark Eldar buyers. These slaves were kept in conditions that violated even the most basic Imperial standards for prisoner treatment. Sneaky Git's initial actions on the station focused on reconnaissance rather than combat. Security logs show it spending several days observing the slave pens, gathering intelligence about the operation's scope and methods. This period of observation reveals a calculating intelligence that contradicts everything known about Ork psychology. Slave pen supervisor Grex Naylor provided detailed testimony about the Orks' eventual intervention. It started with the guards going missing. Not dead, just gone. We'd find their uniforms folded neatly in their quarters, their weapons cleaned and stacked, but no sign of the men themselves. Then the locks on the slave pens started malfunctioning. It had systematically eliminated the slave pen guards using methods that left no trace of violence. Forensic analysis suggests it used precise applications of force that resulted in instant unconsciousness, followed by disposal methods that remain unclear. The bodies were never found, despite extensive searches of the station. The liberation of the slave pens was accomplished through a combination of technical sabotage and direct action. He had somehow acquired detailed knowledge of the station's security systems, disabling locks and surveillance equipment. However, its interactions with the freed slaves reveal the true horror of the situation. Former slave Kira Thurn, now receiving treatment at a secure Imperial facility, described her first encounter with the creature. It was huge, covered in crude armor and weapons. Its skin was green, scarred, and it had tusks like a wild animal. But it was gentle. It freed us from our chains, but it was gentle about it. That was the most terrifying thing of all. The creature's behavior toward the freed slaves defies all understanding. Rather than slaughtering them or abandoning them to their fate, it appeared to take responsibility for their safety. This behavior is completely inconsistent with known Ork psychology and suggests either a mutation in the creature's mental processes or the influence of external factors. The freed slave's testimony reveals that it attempted to communicate with them, though its crude grasp of Gothic made meaningful dialogue impossible. However, its actions spoke clearly enough. It was preparing them for combat, training them to defend themselves against their captors. It would demonstrate fighting techniques, explained former slave Mattis Milner. Simple things, mostly. How to use improvised weapons, how to move quietly, how to work together as a unit. It was like it expected us to have to fight our way out. Sneaky Git's expectations proved accurate when Dark Eldar raiders arrived at the station for their scheduled pickup of human cargo. The ensuing battle represents one of the most significant documented conflicts between Imperial citizens and Dark Eldar forces in recent history. The Dark Eldar contingent consisted of approximately 50 warriors led by a homunculus, identified through post-battle forensic analysis as Vexis the Flensed. This individual had been responsible for the torture and death of thousands of Imperial citizens across multiple sectors. The Orks' confrontation with this enemy provides crucial insight into its combat capabilities. The battle began in the station's main cargo bay, where the Dark Eldar had expected to find helpless human cargo ready for transport. Instead, they encountered organized resistance led by a cunning beast that seemed to anticipate their every tactical move. The freed slaves, despite their weakened condition, fought with a coordination that surprised the Dark Eldar warriors. Station security footage, corrupted but partially recoverable, shows the Ork engaging the homunculus in single combat, while the freed slaves battled the Dark Eldar warriors. His combat style was unlike anything in Imperial tactical databases, combining brutal close-quarters combat with an almost supernatural ability to avoid enemy attacks. It moved like it was dancing, recalled survivor Jana Voss. The Dark Eldar leader was fast, faster than anything human, but the green guy was always one step ahead. It would dodge attacks that should have been impossible to see coming, then counterattack with devastation. The destruction of the Dark Eldar raiding party had significant implications for Imperial security in the sector. Intelligence analysis suggests that this particular group had been responsible for the disappearance of over 50,000 Imperial citizens across a dozen worlds. His actions had inadvertently eliminated one of the most significant xenos threats in the region. However, the intervention came at a terrible cost. The battle had damaged the station's reactor systems, and the brute solution to this problem reveals the true extent of its dangerous nature. Rather than attempting to repair the damage or evacuate the station, it decided to embrace the catastrophic potential of the situation. Chief Engineer Harlan Cross, who survived the reactor incident, described the Orks' response to the crisis. It just started laughing. The reactor was going critical. We had maybe 20 minutes before the whole station went up, and it started laughing. Then it started setting additional charges. It had decided that the damaged reactor presented an opportunity for what it considered an appropriately spectacular finale to its campaign. Its placement of additional explosive charges throughout the station suggests both detailed technical knowledge and a complete disregard for the lives of the humans still aboard. The evacuation of the Blessed Prophet became a race against time, with the explosive preparations accelerating the reactor's countdown to critical failure. However, analysis of his charge placement reveals a disturbing pattern. The explosives were positioned to direct the blast away from the evacuation routes, suggesting that even in its madness, it was attempting to minimize human casualties. It was herding us, realized evacuation coordinator Tess Varak during our interview. The explosions were driving everyone toward the escape pods. It had planned the whole thing to get us off the station before the main reactor went up. The destruction of the Blessed Prophet eliminated the slave trading hub and resulted in the deaths of several hundred corrupt Imperial officials and their Dark Eldar allies. However, it also represented a massive loss of Imperial resources and infrastructure. The crude Ork methods, while effective, demonstrated a casual disregard for the economic and strategic value of Imperial assets. The final confirmed appearance occurred aboard the Imperial Navy vessel Righteous Fury, which had responded to the distress signals from the Blessed Prophet. The ship's crew had no warning of the creature's presence until it was already aboard, having unknowingly transferred during the rescue operations. Captain Mordian Truns of the Righteous Fury provided the final testimony in my investigation. We were processing the survivors from the station when the reports started coming in. Crew members going missing, strange noises in the ventilation systems, equipment being mysteriously repaired or improved. At first, we thought it was just stress from the rescue operation. Its presence aboard the Navy vessel represents the final and most disturbing aspect of the entire incident. Rather than attempting to escape or cause damage, it appeared to be helping. Maintenance logs show numerous repairs and improvements to ship systems, all accomplished with impossible stealth and technical skill. The ship was running better than it had in years, admitted Chief Engineer Callas. Systems that had been giving us trouble for months were suddenly working perfectly, but we could never catch whoever was doing the work. They were invisible, like a ghost in the machine. The Sneaky Git's final act was to disappear into the ship's vast ventilation system, using the network of maintenance tunnels to move throughout the vessel undetected. Despite extensive searches, no trace of the creature was found. It had vanished as mysteriously as it had first appeared. My investigation into this whole incident raises more questions than it answers. This creature demonstrated capabilities that should not exist in any known xeno species, combining Ork physical prowess with unprecedented stealth abilities and tactical intelligence. Its actions, while resulting in significant human casualties, also eliminated major threats to Imperial security. The psychological profile that emerges from witness testimonies is disturbing. This specific specimen appeared to take genuine pleasure in combat and chaos like Orks normally do, but also showed what can only be described as protective instincts toward humans in certain situations. This contradiction suggests either a fundamental mutation in Ork psychology or the influence of unknown external factors. However, an analysis of the creature's methods suggests that its capabilities may be unique rather than representative of a larger trend. The combination of skills demonstrated would require extensive training and experience that is inconsistent with typical Ork development patterns. This may be an anomaly rather than a harbinger of future threats. The investigation also reveals significant weaknesses in Imperial security protocols. The beast's ability to infiltrate multiple secure facilities suggests that our current defensive measures are inadequate against this type of threat. Recommendations for improved security procedures have been forwarded to the appropriate authorities. The human cost of the Sneaky Git incident cannot be ignored. Over 300 Imperial citizens lost their lives, and thousands more were traumatized by their encounters with the xenos. The psychological impact on survivors continues to affect Imperial operations in the sector, with many personnel trying to avoid assignments that might bring them into closer proximity with Ork forces. The strategic benefits of its actions are undeniable, but must not be allowed to overshadow the fundamental threat it represents. The elimination of the Dark Eldar raiding party and the exposure of the slave trading operation have significantly improved Imperial security in the sector. However, these benefits came at the cost of reinforcing the Orks' belief that its methods are effective and justified. A troubling aspect of the entire incident is its survival and continued freedom. Intelligence reports from across the sector suggest that similar incidents have occurred on other worlds, always involving a single Ork operative with unprecedented stealth capabilities. The pattern suggests that the creature designated Sneaky Git remains active and may be expanding its operations. The investigation remains active, with new intelligence reports being evaluated on a continuous basis. Any personnel who believe they may have encountered this xenos threat are instructed to report immediately to their local arbitrator conclave. Emperor, protect us all from the shadows that move in the darkness, and from the enemies who smile while they strike. The Sneaky Git remains at large, and the Imperium remains at risk. This concludes my report on the Tertius incident. May the Emperor's light guide us in our continued vigilance against the alien threat. End of report.